Well, the snow kind of is a pain, but we caught a break. We were able to bring you a gentleman who's stepping away from Congress, one of the great statesmen of the great state of Missouri, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. Welcome to our This Week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update.
Good to be with you, Scott. Thanks for the invitation.
On behalf of anybody that gives a damn about the state or has any sense, thank you for all you've done.
Well, that's one of the more interesting thank yous I've had so far. I appreciate it. I know that there's it's just been interesting last few days since we made our announcement. Let's put it that way.
I tell you, when I think of Missouri, when I think of just common sense Missouri folks that have a level head, that aren't just constantly seeking attention, that do serious things, that an old boy, you take an old boy in rural Missouri who's working for a living, he don't read the paper every day, he's just trying to provide for his family. When I think of somebody actually went into public service and made his life a little easier, I think of you. And I'm afraid that you're the last of a dying breed.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate those sentiments. There's still a lot of us there. The problem is we don't get the headlines. You get the crazies that are there rocks to try and bring attention to themselves so they can raise money. They're not about governing. They're not about legislating, and they're not about saving democracy. And they're not conservative. They're just all about themselves. And they say whatever it takes to make a headline for the day, make a news bite for the night, and be able to raise money. That it is amazing to watch this handful of I call them self-centered anarchists who have basically taken over the House as a result of the very margins that we have. But there's a lot of good people that do a lot of good work, that carry on, that carry the load so these other guys can do their silly stuff.
Why did you ultimately decide that this was the right time to step away?
Well, I'm going to be 72 in May, and my health is still good. And so I thought if I'm ever going to retire and be able to enjoy retirement, because my health is good, now's probably the time to do it. Now, I can look at, maybe becoming the next financial services chairman here, which would be a tremendous feather in my cap. But there's other people that can do the job, number one. And if I stick around another 3 terms, who knows? My health will be good enough to be able to enjoy retirement at that point or not. So I am going to be 72, and that's This is my 24th year of public service, 16th year in Congress. I think I've been in the workforce for 50 years. I think we probably earned a little downtime. So it's it's we had, this was a family decision. It wasn't just my decision. We went over the holidays here. My daughter from Denver was out with her 3 kids, as well, husband, and my other 2 kids were there, and we all sort of discussed this pretty thoroughly, back and forth with the wife. And finally, over the last weekend, we decided, you know what, it's just it's a good time to quit. It's a good time to walk away. I walk away on my own terms. I walk away what I want to do, where I want to go, and I am healthy enough to enjoy retirement. So um, my kids and grandkids may not want me in their lives very much. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but I'm excited to be able to do that. But we're looking forward to this coming year. A lot of stuff to do, and we want to run through the tape.
So, I enjoy hearing you do a radio show that I do, and sometimes you're before or after, and I catch it. And it felt like, I guess I'll just ask you, I mean, Congress, it seemed like the curtain was pulled back on a lot of shenanigans when the speaker was forced out. It looked like not a very fun place to be. Did that whole episode have any bearing on your decision to be like, you know what, I think there's other things I could do?
No, it really didn't. I mean, you're right. The curtain was pulled back. I tell you, Scott, with social media and C-SPAN now, 24-hour news cycle, everything is out there for people to see. And so this kind of stuff went on all the time, just that you never got to see it. It's got a little more vitriol now, but our founding fathers designed a very messy process. It's very inefficient, very messy. People just haven't been able to see behind the curtain before they had all of this media attention. And I think that's the place hasn't really changed in the 16 years I've been there. from a standpoint of all the stuff that's going on. Maybe a little bit more vitriol there now than what it was, but there's still those kind of shenanigans were going on for a long time. If you remember, Boehner tried to unseat Newt Gingrich back in the '90s, and then Tom DeLay had all his activities in the early 2000s. So there's been a lot of activity going on over the years that now with social media and a 24-hour news cycle, it's a completely different ballgame. And we've got some people that have figured this out from a standpoint of their own welfare and take advantage of that to the detriment of the rest of us and detriment of the country, by the way. So it's interesting. It's an interesting place to be. Get more. This isn't over yet either. So it's we've got a lot of shenanigans to go.
Jonathan and I get to sit and see. By the way, John Rattle, thanks for making the time. I appreciate it. There's a guy I always think when I think of Congressman Lukemeyer, I think of you. I know you've been a long time supporter and benefit to him. We see it here at the state too. I mean, it is a when you have institutions built on compromise and patience and statesmanship, and you have a culture of people that want everything right now, like a Facebook post.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things can't exist at once, it feels like.
Yeah, I think looking back, so I started working for Congress when I was 18. So my entire adult political life, really my entire political life, has been working with Congressman Lukemeyer. And I think with the candidates that I've worked with in my time, I think Blaine has kind of set the foundation of the type of elected official, the candidate I try to recruit, the kind of elected official I hope to get elected to be able to serve in Jeff City or in Washington, D.C. And I think, to your point, it's becoming sadly a very, very rare breed that we get to see anymore. Republican primaries come down to who can say the most obnoxious thing or take a flamethrower or a blowtorch to a variety of things. And the elected officials like a Roy Blunt or like a Congressman Lukemeyer who actually go and do the hard work of serving the people of Missouri is very rare. And while I love that Blaine gets to go spend more time with Jackie now and hang out at the lake with the grandkids and softball, I'm really sad for Missouri that we're going to lose him, not only for the state of Missouri, but also for mid-Missouri in particular, because I think that's a huge loss of leadership that no matter, there's a lot of, some great candidates that look to run maybe for his seat, but none of them, I think, can come close to filling Blaine's seat.
Congressman, when you look back on your career, what's something you're particularly proud of you're able to work on?
Well, the first thing that pops into most people's mind with that question, Scott, and your attention is what legislative accomplishments we've had. But the things that to me are most important are the constituent services that were provided for our citizens. They're not going to make headlines. They're not going to make national news, even local news most of the time. But I mean, we helped people be able to have access to government services to get their disability checks. I had one veteran who couldn't get his disability check for several years, and they were just given a runaround by the VA, and we finally pinned them down and told them enough's enough. Got the check and let's go, and it was a $300,000 check to that gentleman. Those are the type of things that, again, they don't make headlines, but you made a difference in somebody's life that day, and that is really important. To me, that's what it's all about. I've had some legislative accomplishments. Yeah, I passed a bill that reformed HUD for the first time in 25 years. Emmanuel Cleaver and myself worked on that bill, and it had about 62 different provisions in it. It was the first rule bill in over 20 years that passed the House without an amendment, and it passed the House and the Senate without an amendment and unanimously, by the way. So this bill passed the House and the Senate unanimously with 62 different provisions to redo HUD. I won Legislator of the Year award as a result of that from a different group, but I was part of the PPP program, about a half a dozen, 8 or 10 of us that worked with Secretary to put that program together that saved literally millions of jobs and millions of small businesses. The one hiccup in the program, I told them they're going to have this problem if you did it the way they were trying to design it. And I said, if you do this, you're going to wind up with some fraud in it with the fintech companies. And sure enough, that's what happened. But
but overall, I mean, you were looking at a recession and a pandemic at the same time. I don't know that the government gets enough credit for the fact that it took some outside the box thinking and overall it was going to be messy and dirty, but let's be honest. I mean, it worked. I mean, overall, I think what the steps that were taken during the pandemic, yeah, there were some hard times, of course, but I mean, I think overall a tremendous job was done.
Yeah, it was really an interesting experience for me because I got to work with Secretary Mnuchin and a few folks on my financial services committee, and we were able to sit down on a daily basis and work through that program. And if we had a question today and Mnuchin didn't have the answer, he'd have it about tomorrow morning. I've never seen a cabinet official that responsive. I mean, we got that thing done in about 2 weeks' time, got it up and running, got the SBA
Yeah.
to be the administrator of it, but it was a treasury program and SBA administered it. And the banks and credit unions did a fantastic job of getting the money out the door and making sure it was monitored and no fraud in it. The fintech companies were the ones who were our problem children, and I knew that was going to happen. But other than that, yeah, it saved, I think, over 50 million jobs and over, I think, 4 or 5 million small businesses. And I go out today and I talk to small businesses every week, and I'm home and on my constituent weeks, and I asked them, I said, you guys get some PPP money? And they said, yes, we did. And thank you so much, because
Yeah.
it saved our business. So yeah, it was a big deal. And I was very fortunate to be a part of that program. And some of the other things that we've done that were important to people's lives, it didn't get a lot of press out there because it's kind of, you deal in the financial services world, you don't get, it's pretty mundane stuff. And it's kind of, people's eyes kind of glaze over. You start talking about, leverage ratios and stuff like that. But, but I can tell you, whenever we had this bank crisis this last spring, first thing everybody did was run to Blaine and a guy named French Hill out of Arkansas. We're the two guys, bankers in the Congress, and said, hey, what's going on? What's going on? What do we need to do? And so it was, again, important to be in that position, and important to have the kind of background it took to be able to help people understand the crisis that we're in, what caused it, how to get out of it, and don't to panic in the middle of it. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting career, and very happy to be able to do what we've done for the people of our great state and the district.
Let's talk about a replacement. There's several folks that are discussing running. Gentleman that ran when you ran a few years ago, former Senator Onder, Travis Fitzwater, state senator from Callaway County. I know there's several others that are discussing it, but Mary Elizabeth Coleman, a senator that doesn't live there, but she's said she wants to run. What's your initial thoughts on what it would take to do a good job representing good Central Missouri folks?
Well, I've always said, when I was running, that I'm kind of a unique guy because I can be in the boardroom in the morning and be in a bean field in the afternoon and be able to relate to both groups of people. And I actually was one day when I was running for my first campaign. I was in a boardroom in a meeting in Hannibal, Missouri, and that afternoon I was in the middle of a bean field because I was wanting to talk to this farmer, and he says, "Well, my tractor just broke down in my bean field. Come on out and we'll sit and talk for about 15 minutes till the parts get here." And so I think having somebody who's well-rounded, who can do the work, wants to be a legislator instead of a rock thrower, that's what I hope we get. Legislating is hard work. Governing is hard work. People don't understand what it takes to pass a bill. I mean, you just don't snap your fingers and it happens. You mean, you have to get your whole staff involved. You have to get the staff from the committee that you're working on, get it through the committee, House, then you have to work with the Senate, get it through over there. And you just don't snap your fingers and make those things happen. And so it's hard work to make sure you bring people together and get coalitions and fine tune your bill. And a lot of these people don't want to do that. They're just there to raise hell and raise their profile and think they're legislators. And quite frankly, when you look at the list of 535 from the House and Senate, they're in the bottom 25 usually when it comes to being a legislator. So I hope hard work of governing. I know there's several senators that are running. A few of them would be good, and a couple of them wouldn't. Frankly, because they're not legislators. They're rock throwers. They're not people who are serious about working on issues. I tell people whenever they ask me about my job, I say, the job's really three separate things, and I spend about a third of my time on each part of it. Part of it is legislating. Part of it's being attuned to the constituency that you work with and solve their problems. And number three, it's a political job. You got to be able to raise money and do your political work. As a senior member, my job has been the last several terms to raise a lot more money, not for myself, but for the team, so we can elect a majority and take the House back and maintain the majority, so we can be chairman and we can guide these issues through the House. That's part of your job, is to be a team player. And so we've got a lot of folks right now that are not team players, and I'm hopeful that these folks who are talking to me, and I tell them this when they call, and they've all called me, by the way. I tell them, I said, look, you guys, you're going to go there and think this is all about legislating, but it's not. I got 5 people that do nothing but constituent work. That's their whole job. 5 people in my district that do nothing but constituent work. That's how important it is to address the issues that are here in the district every day, that our people deal with every day. Whether it's a passport, can't get a disability check, a city's trying to get a grant for their sewer system. So you've got to answer those questions. You've got to be responsive to those people, because those are the folks who elect you and re-elect you. They're the ones who you're supposed to represent. You're supposed to be their liaison between you and their government. It's not your government, it's their government. And you have to be your liaison between. And so hopefully they'll take that message to heart. We'll see. I think we've got a few good folks in this mix that I think would be outstanding.
One of them kind of shares your last name that's kicking it around. I'm gonna put you in an odd spot if he runs. Are you gonna pick one to back? I guess would be the better question.
No, I'm gonna stay out of this race. I'm at this point. I think first thing you want to do is see who's going to actually file. There's a lot of people thinking, but some of them have young families, and some of them are at an age maybe they don't want to get in, and some of them maybe realize that they can't raise the money, and so they start talking to some supporters and find out it's going to take $3 to $5 billion, I think, to be able to run a primary to be able to win this thing. And after that, the general is important, but that's kind of downhill really compared to what the primary is. But yeah, I think there's some good folks there, and cousin Tony, he's talked to me a little bit already as well. So I helped him the first time when he was running for president of the student body at MU. He took my campaign signs from my treasurer's race and took first name off, put his first name on, and took the treasurer's race off, and had it all kind of mucked up a little bit. But it was kind of funny. He took my campaign signs and used them, and he still tells that story today.
Well, tell me this: your district is the most varied district in the state. I mean, my God, you have that insane asylum over in St. Charles. Then you got good Missouri folks in Cole County and folks in St. Elizabeth. I mean, it is an interesting district. Do you think somebody to go to Congress probably needs to be from Central Missouri that knows how to say the name of the state right and isn't insane?
I hope that's what we get. I think that, if you look at the makeup, you got St. Charles, which makes up about 40% of the district. Jonathan,
how did they get so mad over there? Just they drive those little tiny cars and they drink that Starbucks, and they're all so skinny and mad. I don't know how they're so upset.
Well, they don't get this good country cooking like the rest of us do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But no, I think the redistricting map probably made it a little bit more Missouri centric when you added Columbia, you added Boonville, California. And then you look at the southern counties, although we took Franklin away, we had Washington, Crawford, and still got the same number of people. Although I would argue that probably the Jefferson County folks at the western half that we now have are probably more rural than the other part that we had. So it's very farmer, small business oriented.
My buddy Bill McKenna always told me there was 2 Jeffcos. There was real Jeffco with good, hardworking folks, and there was Arnold, which was just St. Louis. He said there's definitely a dividing line. There's 2 of them.
Well, I think Jeffco has turned their politics around in the last few years, and we have. And if you talk to the people, they will tell you I have been very instrumental in that, because I have worked hard with those folks to fund some of their activities, as well as help recruit candidates and talk to their people and been to their fundraisers and things there to be able to help them do that. But I think, the rural makeup of this district is, I think somebody needs to be able to connect with the rural folks. But it is very diverse. You have the Lake of the Ozarks, which is one of the top entertainment centers in the whole Midwest, the top actually. You have the state capitol in the district. You have the University of Missouri in the district. You have a Callaway nuclear plant in the district. And then used to have a couple of Ameren's coal plants down along the river as well, which I think one of them now is out. But yeah, I mean, it's.
Do you think it's important for somebody to replace you to actually live in the district they're going to represent, actually be from there?
I think they need to be able to understand the district, and if you live there, I think it's going to be easier to do that. I think it's going to make it more difficult for you to run against somebody that is from the district. I think if you remember, Taylor Burks was from Columbia, and he was filed in Vicky's race. And then when the district maps came out after the filing deadline, it showed that he then had been moved from Vicky's district to my district. And rather than try and take me on, he decided to drop out of the race altogether. Technically, he could have run in Vicky's district, but he said, it's too hard of a hill to climb whenever you live out of the district. So I think done. I know some of my colleagues that actually live outside the district. Maxine Waters actually lives outside her district. She doesn't live in her district. And I know some other folks too, but I think it's helpful when you live in the district because you can connect with the people better from the standpoint that you can point to your hometown.
That'd also be hard to explain to some old boy from Mocaine that you don't live around here.
It's.
I think in this seat right now that Blaine was instrumental in helping us kind of come up with the map we have now. So the way the math sets up, like from Blaine's point, you need to be from here because mid-Missouri, which is a lot of outside of Columbia, is fairly parochial right there. Then there's the Kingdom of Callaway for all places. And so the district now is about 47% Central Missouri and about 33% St. Charles. And I would say that most people that are from St. Charles or live in St. Charles aren't from St. Charles. They're from West County or South County or Lincoln, somewhere else. They're not from St. Charles. So there's parts of St. Charles that might be parochial, but for the most part, they're not. And especially in the part that we now have, Blaine used to represent kind of more of the western half of St. Charles. Now he has all the eastern. He's got the first state capital to the Jeff City state capital.
Why didn't y'all make Sam take a few of them crazies? I mean, he's right on the border.
Well, I think
he could have been a team player.
I think if you look at the redistricting map, CD3 that Blaine had before, he had the most population. His district was the biggest district in the state. He had to reduce his population by the most. And when it was all said and done, it shows you how much of a team player Blaine is. By the end, he had the largest change in his district. So he should have had a 0% change when it originally started. And when it all came to the end, because Blaine cares about the state, cares about, all the players that be, the district that he ended up with was completely different than what it started off with. But I think the end result is that we've got a district that leans more mid-Missouri more than anything else. And I know you had mentioned Senator Fitzwater before. I think the interesting part of the district as it's currently drawn, he does represent a little bit of St. Charles County as well. So just the district that he represents is about 25% of the district. His dad is obviously the honorable mayor of Jefferson City.
The best damn mayor I can remember.
And so if you add Travis into the district, if you add, let's say he assumed he's going to win the county that is.
I personally already endorsed Ron to take the job. After what he did with the meter maids alone, he's cut more government than everybody else in the state combined.
It's true. So you add that Fitzwater name on it. He represents about 40% of the congressional district as it currently stands. So I don't know if Travis is looking to pull the trigger or not. But I will say that if he does, he should be the front runner just based off what he already represents.
Congressman, you gave folks some time to think, but I mean, I would think with the election in August, I mean, folks don't have a lot of time to let grass grow under their feet, right? They need to kind of be making their moves.
Well, you guys probably don't remember back whenever I were in the first time, but I had about 10 days to make my decision before the filing deadline, filing opened up. So I tried to think about this and make sure we gave people more time, but I wanted to wait till my family was home over the holidays to be able to sit down with them and thoroughly discuss this, because this is a life-changing deal for all of us. And so I waited till then. But as soon as we made a decision, not this past weekend, the weekend before, we got back. I tried to get things set up so I could make the announcement pretty quickly and give people some time. But yeah, it's they're going to have to put the pedal to the metal. I know these guys have got no money, starting from zero, and some of these guys have got like $1 million, $1.5 million. Are politicians who have political accounts. So those guys are going to be off and running. They've got a little bit of an edge on them, but raising money is going to be a big deal in this. You're going to have it's a primary with lots of folks in it. A lot of people don't give in a primary. Sometimes your endorsements are important, but then again, sometimes people don't want to endorse because of the multi-candidate primary. So it's going to be.
Don't you think groups are going to have to get over that? I mean, as somebody you've been through the state legislative wars, the congressional ones. I mean, if you're an organization that doesn't endorse in a primary, why even have an endorsement process? I mean, who gives a damn? We don't really have general elections anymore. We have primaries. So if you're a group that doesn't endorse in a primary, why waste your time?
Well, I wonder how much the endorsements are actually worth. I harken back to he didn't have any endorsements. He still won governor's race. I just shake my head because is it really worth anything? People today don't really listen to those endorsements very much. It may make a difference in 1 or 2% of the vote, but I can tell you, whenever I go talk to people, they don't talk about endorsements. They don't talk about, the pro-life endorsement may be the one that actually turns a couple people, but Farm Bureau, NFIB, Chamber of Commerce, all those guys are a lot of Republican type of endorsers. And I don't see, when I talk to people, anybody mention it. Oh, I heard that NFIB was endorsing you. No, they never talk about that. They talk about you as an individual, what your background is, and what you can say on the stump. Can you articulate a position, your ideas in a way that can convey to them that you can be a successful and effective legislator? That's what they want to hear. They want to hear you be authentic. They want to hear you convince them that you're the guy that can go to DC and make a difference.
I always want to thank the folks for letting us be here on the midweek update with Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer and John Ratliff. You have United Fiber up in Savannah, does a heck of a job laying fiber. If you want to see all that rural broadband money you've been twisting arms and dragging back to Missouri, and nobody does it better than the folks up in Savannah. And then, of course, the Crown Hotel property, the crown jewel of your district, the Courtyard by Marriott. If you're going to run for office and you want to look like you got it together, you want a guy like Jonathan to take you on and work on your campaign. Don't tell him you're staying somewhere besides the Courtyard. You just look JV. Congressman, tell me, there's a thing called the Freedom Caucus y'all got out there, right? They started one here. What's them folks like out there in Washington?
Well, they are a far right group, and about half of them
are they right? Because here they're not that right. They complain a lot.
Well, they're on the far right politically. How's that?
Are they?
I tell people, I said, a lot of those folks are not even Republicans. They're not Republicans because they do not want to govern. I call them self-centered libertarian anarchists. They're really libertarians who can't win as a libertarian and yet so they run as a Republican. Yeah. But they're anarchists because they don't want to govern. Anybody can throw our with 4% of the vote and laugh about it when you get done. That's an anarchist in my mind. And so when they pull that stunt, that told me all I need to know about those guys. And if you watch what went on during that, this is the best example I can point. I can point to lots of examples. But whenever we were hearing doing all this stuff with McCarthy, they would stand on the floor and raise hell and turn around and walk out the back door and go to a bank of microphones and TV cameras for a hit that night on Hannity or whoever. They were not there and in fact, they went to Kevin 2 days into this and said, Kevin, by the way, you're not going to have any sort of retribution against us because we're doing this, are you? And then they went on for 2 more days after that. The other day, one of them got up on the floor and said, he was raising all sorts of heck, saying, hey, look, guys, we haven't done anything yet this session that I could go home and run on. Whoa, time out. You're not there to pass bills to go home and run a campaign on. You're there to solve problems and better the lives of our citizens and our country and position ourselves in this world to be better leaders. What in the hell's going on? And so the very next week, this character gets up on the floor again and is raising all sorts of heck again about, hey, we need to be staying here. We're not getting our work done. We need to work through the Christmas vacation here. We got to get stuff done. And oh, by the way, I have a motion to adjourn at the desk. What? You just want to stay here, work, adjourn? And this happened to be on getaway day when everybody already lined up, knowing that we're supposed to get out at a certain time, which now is going to be pushed back probably 40 minutes. So, yeah, it's been a mess. So these guys that's just a taste of what I see every day. It's a bunch of self-centered guys who really, they think they're saving the country, but they're not doing it in a way that is, it's okay to throw rocks, try to tear stuff down, but what's your plan B? How are you going to build it back? And they don't want to do the hard work of governing. That's the problem. If you want to really govern and you really want to improve the lives of people, you're going to have to find a way to get to yes on something. You can't be no on everything.
That's what I've seen is I think there's a lot of folks, and I wouldn't have a clue what's in the only Washington I go to has got Mark Hart's Landing there in Franklin County. But that's what I see here is they don't want to get to a yes. The point is not to get to a yes. The point is to have something to moan about and complain about after it's over. And that's it's almost a cultural phenomenon that is. I don't know how you ever put that toothpaste back in that tube.
Yeah, I think what I've seen here recently is the pendulum seems to have stopped going their way and maybe starting to turn a little bit the other way and coming back, because I've had a lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, I see those guys up on the floor, and all they do is talk about themselves. They're trying to a lot of self-aggrandizement there, and really, let you guys go get something done." And so they're beginning to see through this group. They can't raise money. This is another reason they're up on the floor all the time, because they can't raise money at home, can't raise money in DC. The only way they can raise money is get a national profile of being up on the floor and raising hell and throwing rocks and making outrageous statements. Then go on a national their digital stuff and raise money. But otherwise, they can't even do that. People back home don't even like them anymore. So they're having their own set of problems, and we'll see what comes out. But yeah, I can tell you more stories about those guys than you want to listen to.
Let me ask you before we go about Trump. You know, I think in my own white trash review, folks were kind of he was whining all the time about losing his election. He says he won it. He lost his election, and he's whined all the damn time. And I think folks were kind of starting to look around and say, is there not somebody else that won't moan so much? And then they started arresting him every third day. And it got to the point where it felt to me like, well, I'm kind of tired of Trump, but now that ain't right. And really, I think it bounced him back to or what it did, I think it closed the door for folks to think about somebody else. They might still have settled back on Trump, but I think they were open to somebody else until they just started arresting the hell out of him. Where he is right now, there's been a big blow up. Do you think he ought to be kicked off a ballot for what he's done, whatever they've proven so far? I don't think that strikes folks right.
Well, I think you have to kick somebody off the ballot if they've been if a crime has been adjudicated to the point where they've committed a crime that would force them off the ballot. At this point, it's all accusations and indictments. There's no follow through with a criminal conviction there. And so it's like with Santos that we had in the House. I voted against that because, he needs to be kicked out, and I certainly support him getting kicked out. You set a dangerous precedent whenever you kick somebody out before their crime is adjudicated. You can't. We're not judge and jury. We're the ones who have to put the case together and let the courts decide if it's right or not. And so the same thing with Trump. He's been tried in a court of public opinion rather than in a real court. And I think most people are against that. They understand everybody should have their day in court. The Constitution gives you due process. He's never had due process on any of his stuff yet. I mean, he's going through the process on some of it, but he's never been convicted of anything yet. And so to get kicked off a ballot is very, very premature. And I think it's out of line. And it's just nothing but a political statement by the secretaries of states of these states that have done it.
I gotta be honest with you. The stuff he's charged with just doesn't. You were there. I can't imagine what it was like that day when all the nut jobs tried to storm the Capitol. But I mean, to me, I don't know that you can blame Trump. I mean, do you hold him responsible for that? I mean, he said a lot of dumb things, but he didn't dress up like a wild man and go break stuff. I have no sympathy for people that are breaking stuff that folks have to pay taxes to put back. They ought to be in trouble. I mean, you oughtn't do that. I have no sympathy for protesters to get out in the middle of the road. But I do think, do you hold Trump responsible for what those folks did?
No,
I kind of don't either.
He made a typical political speech that was no more insightful than what Biden is saying right now, than what Waters has been saying in the past, what John Kerry has said in the past. You go back and look at some of the speeches some of these other Democrats have made. Adam Schiff, for instance, the inciting language that they use is well beyond what Trump did, and they never got they got a pass all the time. So, Trump was more. He was trying to get his group fired up, and I don't think. And if you ever listen to his speeches, and you ever listen to his go to his rallies, they're some of the best behaved people. They don't destroy things. And if you go to DC, you can tell which groups the Democrats, when they come to town, they destroy every whole neighborhood. But whenever Trump people come, you'll never know they're there the next day because everything is cleaned up and there's nothing destroyed. His people are there for one purpose, and that's to support the president, to become energized by him and his energy and by his message. That's all they did.
Our
Then,
Secretary of State said if they kick Trump off, he wants to kick Biden off. That don't strike me as right. Just because somebody in Colorado does something doesn't mean you ought to do something here. What do you
well,
think?
you want to do something to Biden as well, but again, I can tell you, Biden's got enough stuff that we're gonna wind up getting him yet before it's over with. I see a lot of it behind the scenes that they bring stuff to me because they got a financial services background and they want me to look at some of the transactions and some of the paperwork that's going on. Holy cow, this guy is dirty as hell. And Hunter is nothing more but a bag man for Joe and his brother Jim. So that's going to come out over the course of the next few weeks, few months here. But
Well, give me a prediction. Do you really? I mean, I've never met the man in my life, but Joe Biden strikes me as a nice man. I'm a little surprised to think he'd have all these things going on. Now, that's just my read on seeing him on TV. Like I said, I've met Trump. I've never met Joe Biden in my life. In your bones, do you think Joe Biden has done things that's going to get him, that's going to prove he and get him in trouble?
yes,
Really?
he oh my gosh. This last thing that came out was a $5 million payment from China. They went through about 25 different shell companies, and Biden got a $40,000 payment directly out of that. I mean, there's a tie right there. I've read the uh, emails back and forth that the bankers had to make the decision of how to report this, because this is money laundering. This is out and out money laundering, what they're doing. And to launder a payment from China, the government, that is illegal as hell. So he's done a bunch of stuff, and he's arrogant enough that, but to think he can get away with it. But he's smart enough on how to figure out how to do it. Now his brother Jim, he's not got 25 shell companies. He just takes direct payments. So it's going to be easy to go to court and and go to jail. But and Hunter, his laptop it absolutely indicts everything that has been said about him. It is a smoking gun. Will never. It just keeps giving good information. So yeah, Joe is dirty as heck. He is going to go down at some point, but he's the president, so nothing's going to happen to him. Even if he does wind up going, he's got an attorney general. Number one, they'll never enforce the law against him, and number two, as a sitting president, he's not going to have anything thrown against him. And even if he would lose and Trump would be the next president, I think Trump would probably pardon him on top of that. But Hunter is another story. Hunter is in big trouble, and so we'll see how that works out.
Blaine also serves on the China Select Committee, and I don't know, Congressman, if you want to share with Scott or any of the viewers just some of the kind of very frightening information that you've learned that you can share with us serving on that committee.
Yeah, China. Most of this is public information. A lot of it is stuff that can be public, not classified anymore. But China, our own generals have said that by 2027 they anticipate that China will invade Taiwan. President Xi that day in discussions with Biden made it very clear that he wants Taiwan, going to get it whatever it takes. He made a comment just I think last week in a news press release, a press hearing, the conference, that he's going to take Taiwan back, whatever it takes. And so when that happens, they go into Taiwan, and we will sanction China. China will then, their reaction to that will be to nationalize all of American assets. So if you've got a savings account or a retirement account with one of the big guys, Vanguard, BlackRock especially, and it's sitting in China, it'll be gone. And the Americans that are there are going to they'll be rounded up and they'll be thrown in their prison states, about $300 billion a year right now, to surveil, detain, and build detention camps on their own people. And our Americans will be thrown in those camps and be used as bargaining chips, just like Hamas is doing, just like Iran is doing, just like Russia's doing with Ukraine. That's what's going to happen. Ukraine or China itself, you watch the news and put connect all the dots and cross all the T's here. They cut new oil deals with Russia and Iran. They see that their two weak spots are food and oil, and they've cut new deals also with Brazil and Argentina with regards to food. And so they saw what happened with Russia whenever they went into Ukraine. The sanctions went on, and Russia struggled for a while with trying to get their economy to hold on to it. So what they're trying to do is keep their economy around themselves and make new allies and new friends to be able to fund them and keep their economy going whenever they go into Taiwan and lock down the rest of the world. Now, when this all happens, the economy is going to go to hell in a heartbeat. The stock market go offline. You're going to wind up with the satellites will probably be terminated because all the satellites half of our country. So it's going to be a mess. I mean, we did a tabletop exercise with our committee, brought a company in to do this, and we had a retired Army general be our chief of staff advising us as we go through. So he gave you a scenario, and then you give you three solutions to the problem. That our group had done very well compared to the Chinese still had 30,000 people on Taiwan. We had lost 2 aircraft carriers, which is 4,500 men apiece. We lost half our airplanes, and we lost half our long-range missiles. So this is not going to be pretty when this happens. We need to be ready. Things that I've asked of the Federal Reserve Chairman as well as the Secretary of the Treasury, ladies and gentlemen, whenever we sanctioned Russia when they went into Ukraine, but it took like 2 or 3 months to get this done. Knowing that happened, and knowing in general that China is going to go in there, have you started to again getting our allies all lined up and getting a list of how we're going to go about sanctioning China and all the different oligarchs they've got there and different businesses? Have you started putting this together and getting our allies all lined up on this? And I asked this about a year ago, and at that time it was like a deer in the headlight. They had never thought about it. So this fall, back in November, December, I asked the same question again of the same 2 people, Chairman Powell and Secretary Yellen. And then they finally admitted that, yeah, we're starting to talk about it. We're starting to think. But that's the scary part of what goes on, is you have people who should be in positions, who should be forward thinking, put all of these together, and yet they're not. And it's going to be to our own detriment if we don't do this. So that's kind of, I mean, I keep talking on this China stuff all day, but it is, the fentanyl comes in from China. They send the ingredients into Mexico, give it to sell it to the cartels, and then they get it into this country. The cartels, and that's about a $13+ billion industry now, and they've actually taken over about 40% of the geography of Mexico now. They're that powerful. They had 300,000 people cross the border in December. We know that about 175 terrorists were picked up last year at the border. How many got through? We have no idea. We do know there's 25 to 30 terrorist cells in this country right now that could do a September, right? This together with China, with Russia, with Mexico, Iran's in the middle of this. This is from 30,000 feet. You got to wrap this together, and then you see that China's kind of in the middle of all this, kind of pulling strings and pushing people certain ways. It's very scary stuff. This is when you need leadership. You need somebody in the White House who understands it. Military leader who understands how to put a program together to be able to thwart and protect ourselves and our country. We need a new leader. Let's put it that way.
Well, Congressman, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you so much. Last question. If you was going to take somebody and show them your district, where's a couple places they would go? And while you think about that, we always make fun of St. Charles. They are nuts. But I did say I'm going to come with 3 nice things. 1, Steve Ellman, hell of a man. 2, I like that there's a place, the beautiful place along the river in the very north part of the county. Those river bluffs are beautiful. That you wouldn't even know you was in St. Charles County, really. And then the best Oktoberfest in the state is in St. Charles. Now, if you're going to take somebody to your district, where would you take them?
Well, it's so spread out. I think you almost have to take them someplace down in like Crawford and Jefferson and Washington County, somewhere down there. I mean, it's such a beautiful area. You've got lots of Mark Twain forest down there. Then you have Central Missouri, which has, the nuclear plant, Lake of the Ozarks, Jefferson City, the capital, University of Missouri. A lot of history here in Central Missouri, and then St. Charles itself. There's some history there as well. It's a county, and we still have a lot of good folks that are there in my district as well. So individual things to see. The nuclear plant's neat to see. Lake of the Ozarks got all sorts of things to see. State Capitol is great to see. University of Missouri could put a heck of a tour on for you. There's some interesting businesses around the district. We have one that's in Jefferson County. I was there last week, or a couple weeks ago, I guess, before Christmas. They make all the air conditioning and heating, air conditioning cooling systems for all of the big ships that the government has, as well as all the submarines. It's amazing to see what we have around the district, what kind of things we produce. There's a bomb making plant in St. Charles, just across from Boeing. It's owned by Boeing. It's kind of neat to go see.
That could be taken many ways.
But to me, it's just there's so many mom and pop businesses that you can go see that they're more than happy to show you what they've got. I was in a business the other day that started out. It's called two guys in a garden. And these two guys started out, growing. They grew more than what they could give away, and so they started, producing some sort of salsas and sort of other things that they were using excess stuff. And so it eventually got into they opened up their own kitchen, and then they opened up, they got their own line of stuff that they sell. And now that they've opened up this kitchen, so other people have come to them and said, how do you get in business to be able to start selling your own homegrown products? And so they started a side business called Hub, the Kitchen Hub, where they have a great big building and they have small kitchens in that building, and they lease them and rent them out. Very entrepreneurial. And so I've never seen that business model before, but all sorts of things like that throughout the district that were people, and then we've got a couple of, whiskey barrel making companies that are through those places. It's very interesting to see how whiskey barrels made. So there's a lot of stuff that you can go see that I think everybody needs to be, as a congressman, you need to get a good flavor of the people in your district, what they do, how hard they work, how much risk they take to make their small businesses work. Because when you get to DC, you got to make sure you protect that, make sure they don't take away the freedom to be able to do these things, to be an entrepreneur, take the risk, and don't get overregulated to where it runs them out of business. That's very.
Well, Congressman, thank you so much for the time, and on behalf of the entire state, thank you for everything you've done.
My pleasure. It's good to be with you, Scott. Always a pleasure. Keep up your good work, and hopefully you'll keep things under control in Jefferson City there this
We'll keep an eye on Ratliff, too. That'd be the other thing. Have a good time. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, so what did he say? He said it was he retired because he wanted to retire, not because he was tired of it. I guess, I mean, if a lot of the things what he says, like when people tell me Joe Biden's going to be in trouble, I'm like, oh, whatever. But if Blaine Luetkemeyer says, I'm like, well, okay. Like some folks, I would say there's a part of you that would have to be tired of Matt Gaetz just goofy stuff like that. But if he says it wasn't, I actually take him at his word.
Yeah, I think listening is funny. As he was talking, I was thinking, like, if you could just take out some of the names, and if you didn't hear that part of the story, but you could listen to the entire narrative he's building, all the problems that he sees and experience now in DC, and literally think he's talking about the Missouri Senate. You could take Matt Gaetz and replace him with, unfortunately, a whole plethora of Missouri senators and think they're causing the same situation. So it's now the cancer of the Freedom Caucus, or whatever they want to call themselves in DC, is now unfortunately infiltrating the Jeff City and
I think it's a good idea. I mean, the House members, who cares, right? Be in a caucus, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we've always had the conservative caucus.
You have all that
in
stuff.
The House,
be the left-handed caucus, but a senator, I've never understood. And I criticize the people in leadership. Why are you having caucuses all the time? I mean, I don't get it. You're a senator. Why do you need a caucus? Just be a senator.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you have we've had the conservative caucus in the House. Representative Baker's, I think, been the chair of that for a long time, and it's more ideological. Like, they're truly conservative individuals pushing that agenda. In the Senate, you can't even. I mean, you could argue that they've had a whole back and forth. Mike Moon says this whole press release he sent out about how he's not welcome in the Freedom Caucus. But now they're comparing it to the Moon standard is the new standard for what it means to be a state Freedom Caucus. And I think as the Senate, unlike the Apple Pie Caucus or whatever they want to call themselves that existed in the past.
But the House is about large numbers of people agreeing on something and making maneuvers.
Oh, yeah.
And it sort of lends itself to a coalition of caucuses. A Senate is about, you're a senator.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need a crutch? Do you need to be propped up by people? If you have views, and today you share views with this other person on this issue, that's great. Tomorrow, you could be against them. You're a senator. Well, I think it's the ultimate weakness. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost sad.
I think for them, as the congressman talked about,
And I trust Jim Lemke, a Missourian. The only thing about that freedom thing, whatever. If you just aren't strong enough to be a senator, and you need to be kind of like a little bit bigger House member, be a caucus. Whatever. I don't. That's who am I to tell somebody that we got elected what they should do. But I do think this. I do trust Jim Lemke to run something far more than a national group. I'm going to tell you, those national groups could give a damn about anybody here. If I had to guess, folks pay that group, that national group, to color us in on a map for their little issue, and they think these folks will help get their state colored in. And they give a damn how that works for this state. I don't think the dangers of this state all come. Part of them are from crossing the Mexican border, sure, but Missouri is far more at peril from assholes from the East Coast crossing the Mississippi River than the Rio Grande.
100%. And I think that's the thing, whether it's in what's happening in Jeff City, what's going to happen in this congressional race. I mean, the way these campaigns come down, as you know, you've alluded to it in other campaigns, of this East Coast DC money coming into our state and trying to tell us this is who should be our next.
If Republicans want it out of the IP process, this out of state, the asshole influence, why are they so eager to have the asshole influence in the one-on-one campaigns? I agree with it. Get it out of the IP process. Hallelujah. But also get it out of the other stuff. There ain't one person. The last sumbitch that came here from the East Coast to do a damn thing for us was Meriwether Lewis. There ain't been 1 cent come from the East Coast to help us. So he also said he's not going to endorse anybody. Kind of hate that.
I think he also said, he kind of gave a little caveat there. I think he said that he is not making a decision now. He wants to wait and see who all files, Fair enough. That field will look like. I think, look, he's represented this district now for 16 years. He lived here his entire life. You have someone who's from St. Elizabeth who, he comes home every weekend. He goes and you'll see Jackie at Walmart here in town, or at the mall. You're going to see Blaine at Miss Kitty's, or now that he's retired, Miss Jackie's. Maybe she'll take over Miss Kitty's down there in St. E. But he's always in his. He's always working, doing things. Where I think some members of Congress, I think you've alluded to it before. Once they're elected, we're not going to see them here anymore, and they're not going to be here to do anything. And so I think we want a congressman. I've lived here since I was 18 years old. This is my home. Now this is where I'm raising my family. And I want to make sure that our next congressman is a congressman like Blaine, who's going to come back and actually care about the people of Missouri and do big things. He didn't
so you're
mention
have to elect someone from Central Missouri.
Well, I hope so. I mean, as a mid-Missourian, I hope a mid-Missourian's going to win.
There's a lot of congressmen that couldn't find Missouri on a map 3 years in. And I'm not, some folks want that though. It is weird. Republicans have this thing where they whine. They're like, they want to be abused. They want to be spit in their face. It is a subservient thing that's weird.
I think, as Blaine said, do we have enough Matt Gaetz in Washington, D.C.? We need some governing conservatives actually do the big things. Like the NGA is now in St. Louis. It's a huge deal. That was accomplished because of Roy Blunt, Congresswoman Wagner, and Congressman Luetkemeyer. Like their staff put it together. They delivered that for our state, which is so huge, and people don't realize what that means. The things that are going on with the federal government coming in and causing problems for everyone who likes the Lake of the Ozarks and wants that to exist in the way it does now, or the farmers that are in there. Blaine is doing all these things he's been working on, kind of handles those problems that without someone like Congressman Luetkemeyer, like a Roy Blunt, you're not going to. Missouri will just slowly, unfortunately, fade away, and our population's dwindling in this state right now. If the trend currently continues, we might lose another congressional seat in the future. And if we don't have a mid-Missouri congressman this next time, and we lose a seat, then we're definitely not going to have a mid-Missouri seat. And we won't have a congressman ever again.
John Ratliff, thank you so much. Congressman Luetkemeyer, thank you. We will see you all Sunday